Alright everyone, this is Bender Beerman, and as you can tell, I'm in my apron, which means we're doing some baking today. Today, we're actually going to make some beer bread. Before we get started, I just want to tell you what it is, alright? You need 3 cups or 360 grams of all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt or 3/4 if you're using fine, 1 12-ounce beer you enjoy. Try to make this a not bitter beer. Like when you cook beer, sometimes when you cook bitter beer, it intensifies the bitterness. So you don't want to use a super bitter beer. You want 3-4 tablespoons of melted butter that we're going to use at different points. All right, over here I've got my bowl set up on my old school gauge scale. I've got a cooling rack and a silicone bread pan. I love these because you don't actually need to do much with it. Like I usually just give it a quick spray with some olive oil just to make it a little easier, but these are great. I highly recommend them. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna set the oven to 375 and get that preheating. Now, we're gonna get stuff started mixing in our bowl. I'm gonna start putting my flour into the bowl, and I'm gonna watch my gauge here until it hits 360 grams. And we have it, 360 grams of flour. Now we're going to add our sugar, which is 3 tablespoons of sugar. Now we're adding 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And since I'm using fine table salt, I am just putting in 3/4 of a teaspoon, which I'm doing a quarter at a time. And that's pretty much all of the ingredients, except for the beer, of course. I'm just going to use a whisk, and I'm gonna mix it. At this point, it's time to add our beer. Now it's gonna foam up when it enters the batter, as you can see. And that's all of the CO2 coming out of solution. It's fine. It's supposed to do that. I'm going to take a spatula. I like to use silicone spatulas. They tend to work best. And we're just going to start mixing it in. Now that we have our dough nice and mixed up, we're going to get it ready. We're going to, I like to use some spray olive oil. So we're just going to spray the inside of our bread pan. Once you have it oiled, it's time just to go ahead and put it in. Now, if you are using a metal bread pan or something along those lines, do a light buttering or oil and cut some parchment paper and put it down in there, and that'll make it a lot easier to get out. Once that's in there, now it's time to melt some butter. You're going to want to melt about 2 tablespoons. I like to do it in smaller chunks. It seems to melt a little bit easier. So it's about 2 tablespoons, maybe a little bit more. It'll be fine. Once your butter is melted, all you need to do is go ahead and pour it just right across the top. Try to get a good even covering. If you need to, use a pastry brush and just kind of brush it to the areas that you might have missed. We're gonna keep this for later because after it comes out, we're going to put some more butter on it. Once your butter is put on, it's time to go in the oven. And we're going to set the timer for 40 minutes. And now we wait. The timer is about to come off and it's about to come out of the oven. Now I've peeked through the window and looked at it, and it's looking really good. Now we're going to do what's called the toothpick test to make sure that it has been cooked properly. And basically all that is we're going to stick a toothpick in the middle, bring it out, and if it's clean, that means it's cooked. Oh, look at that. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? We're gonna take our toothpick, we're gonna stick it down in the middle, and we're gonna pull it out, and it came out clean. That was at 40 minutes at 375. And now we need to get it out of here and onto our drying rack, our cooling rack. Now I've taken my cooling rack And I put it in a cheap cookie pan because we're gonna brush some butter on it. Oh yeah, look at that base. Look at that. You can also do kind of a thumb test. If it sounds and feels hollow, you know it's good. Now that I've got it out, I'm gonna put it on our cooling rack and set it down. All right, now that it's on its cooling rack, we're going to take our leftover butter that's pre-melted, and we're just going to brush over the top and sides of the whole thing. Now this makes kind of a biscuity bread, and it is absolutely delicious. Go ahead and hit your sides. And this is why I put it on the pan, because that butter will drip down. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's it, everyone. We have made a beautiful loaf of beer bread. This is Bender Beer Bread, and this is Bender Beer Man. And if you've enjoyed this content, I would greatly appreciate if you hit like and subscribe. Cheers. I'll see you next time.